I'm going to do a quick rundown of the last 6 years of Donald Trump's presidencies and kind of just making fun of how anyone thought he was going to change for the better. So in 2016, he's elected president of the United States freely and fairly, despite what Blue Anon has to say. He gets power, and at first I thought, as much as I abhor who he is, and I deeply regret that he has ever been president, at the time I said, okay, I'll give him 2 years. Either he will prove that he can handle himself, or he will prove to be a failure. And he proved to be a failure, not even in the first 6 months. Constantly distracted, constantly losing focus, doing the most illogical things as president, like the travel ban. And while I did agree with the deregulation, the tax cuts, and appointing conservative judges, it was clear that that was one of the few times he'd do anything right. The criminal justice reform, I think, was perhaps the best thing he did as president in the first term. Everything else was dog shit. There was kids in cages, and I don't care who started it, because if he didn't start it, he should have ended it. He flip-flopped on almost everything. He really was, like, as Ann Coulter said, a couch. He had the impression of the last person that sat on him. It was clear that he believed in nothing. If you flatter him enough, he will do what you want, or if you pay him enough. Corruption didn't improve. He profited off the presidency just as much as he did in the second term. Well, much more in the second term. His supporters made excuses. If any other president did it, they would have had a problem. But because it's Donald Trump, he could literally hurt their kids in front of him, and they would tell their kids to not disrespect the president. Then, 2018, this stupid trade war that did nothing, did not bring back jobs. In fact, it made the situation worse, and it showed that he was willing to raise sales taxes on the American people and punish them for buying from places he didn't want them to buy from. 2019, he attempted to rig the 2020 election by, digging up non-existent evidence on Joe Biden, got impeached for it, botched the pandemic, the country went into recession. He egged on people to storm the Capitol after losing the election, tried to steal the 2020 election in 2020 and 2021. He, as president, had decided that when the country was reeling from the murder of George Floyd, he would do everything he could to fan the flames. He decided that that was going to be the appropriate thing to do. He then lost re-election, was forced from office because it was either he would accept that he was going to leave or he'd be removed, and he didn't concede the election, but he basically acknowledged he would not get a second consecutive term. He then plotted for 4 years on how to come back, stewed over what he didn't get to do. Joe Biden shat the bed so badly as president that the people sent Donald Trump back, this time winning the popular vote. 2016, 2020, 2024 have one thing in common. They were free, fair elections. Anyone who says otherwise is just spewing cope. Then after that, Donald Trump comes back to the White House, having campaigned on the cost of living crisis and weaponization of government and decrying a bunch of other stuff. And then he showed that he either didn't care about the subject and didn't make any progress on it as president, like the cost of living, and he in fact worsened it with the tariffs. Hundreds of billions in tariff revenue being paid for by the American taxpayer. Starting a trade war, threatening to invade countries to take their land from them and their resources, which is impeachable, and he should have been removed from power not even before the 6-month mark in 2025. He has shown himself willing to grift off the office even more, insert himself in almost every facet of American life, and as president, he has decided that basically he will change stuff just for change's sake. It doesn't matter if it is a worthwhile thing like the Trump Kennedy Center or the Department of War, which is a stupid thing to call it because legally it is the Department of Defense. This was a pointless name change Gulf of America when he has no legal authority to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico. Not releasing the Epstein files in full, unredacted. Anyone who hurt anyone at Epstein Island or had ties to Epstein or hurt anybody, they deserve to be fully exposed. The fact he won't, I will say this, and I don't care what happens, Donald Trump is a PDF file. There is not a single legitimate reason for him to have refused to release the files, and as far as I'm concerned, anyone who still supports him deserves to be viewed suspiciously as a PDF file, because they support a man who himself has a history of inappropriate behavior around women and children. And at that point, if you still support him, you deserve to be tied with him on everything he does, blamed for everything he does. In his second and thank Christ final term, his power is going to be diminished following the 2026 midterms. He will lose the midterms, and this administration, if I was the Speaker of the House following the 2026 midterms, I would play constitutional hardball. I would not give a penny to ICE. You want ICE to have money? You have to agree to a series of reforms, or I will let that institution go penniless. I will shut the government down until you give in on ICE. It is a terrorist organization, deporting people without due process, accusing people without proof of being illegal immigrants, demanding to see their papers. People do show their papers, and then, oh, we don't believe you. There's no point in complying with ICE. There's no point in complying with law enforcement when they abuse their power. They took an oath to enforce all laws, including laws that inflict violence on peaceful people, victimless crimes. At that point, one has to say, you can't trust law enforcement while Donald Trump is president. I mean, you can't trust them, period. They're all bastards. He has made them his little hit squad. He will dig up trumped-up charges against you as retaliation if you disagree with him. And as far as I'm concerned, there is really only one thing that could be done to bring him to heel. One thing, well, it's a few things. There could be mass civil disobedience in the United States to make the country ungovernable, coupling that with if the EU and NATO member states together imposed crippling trade embargoes, travel bans, and sanctions against members of this administration, and just travel ban the whole country. You know, the public pressure to force Trump to stop this bullshit of wanting to take Greenland, and to force ICE to stop rounding up people indiscriminately without proof they're illegally in the country, and abusing anyone who says to them that that, you know, you're going too far, you are abusing people's rights. The pressure is going to build. Anyone who opposes this administration should support crippling sanctions against anyone serving in the administration, anyone in Congress who backs this president. I love this country, and I think the only way to save it is to destabilize Donald Trump's position as president to the point he has to resign, or to the point that members of Congress have to remove him via impeachment, because if he invades Greenland, he is going to invade other countries for their resources. This ain't about democracy. It ain't about freedom. It isn't about American national security. It is about distracting from the Epstein files and spreading a fascist movement, making it go global. There is no compromise with this president. There's no compromise with MAGA. At the next general election, everyone and their mother must go to the polls and vote for anyone but the Republicans. Make this election defeat for them a harsh one, worse than 1936. I'll see y'all soon.